welcome to Rulebreaker. Today we are going to show you how to play a Game of Thrones, the card game 2nd edition. This is one of my favorite games, and I think once you've seen this video you'll agree that it's not as complicated as it looks when you open the box. Inside the box you'll find a Learn to Play book and a rules reference. This rules reference is great. It's got a wonderful index on the back, which is really useful. If you ever find a term on a card that you don't know what it means, this is the place to go. There's also a bunch of tokens. These are power tokens, which you're going to accumulate throughout the game to try and win the game. You need 15 of those. Over here we've got the gold tokens. These you will get each round to pay for your cards from your hand. We've got these generic double-sided tokens that you will use for various effects. And you've got the little Iron Throne here, which just denotes first player. You're also going to get cards for each of the 8 factions in the game. Fans of the books and TV series will be able to recognize these pretty easily, I'm sure. You've got the Starks, the tragic heroes who keep dying all the time. You've got the Lannisters, who are the power behind the throne and the richest family in Westeros. You've got the Baratheons, King Robert and his feuding brothers. The Tyrells, who will do anything to marry into the crown. The Greyjoys, the murderous pirates who do not so. You've got the venomous Southerners, the Martells. They specialise in revenge. You've got the Night's Watch, the protectors of men from atop the wall. And you've got the Targaryens, the mother of dragons and her many armies. There is also a whole host of cards of varying types that we're going to explain in this video. To win in a Game of Thrones card game, you've got to collect 15 power for your faction. As soon as you do that, you win immediately. Or a much less likely way to win is to deplete your opponent's deck of cards. Your main deck is going to have character cards, location cards, attachment cards, and event cards. And you're going to have a plot deck that has exactly 7 cards. These cards are quite different to the other cards, and we'll explain that in a little while. The Learn to Play book recommends that you use a Lannister deck and a Stark deck to get going. The ones in the book are quite small. For the purposes of this video, I have my own Lannister deck and Stark deck that have a few additional cards in them just to help with the teaching. So this is how you set up your game of Game of Thrones. Once you are ready to start playing and you've chosen your faction, you got to stick your faction card down and you've got to get your plot deck separate from your other cards. You should have exactly 7 of those. Keep them to one side. You've got your draw deck here, which is your main cards that you're going to be playing throughout the game. The setup is that each player draws 7 cards from the top of their deck. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Take a look at those cards, and you can choose to either keep the cards or get rid of them all. Shuffle your deck and then take 7 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you choose to do this, you can only do it once. You're stuck with this 7 cards no matter what they are. So you got to make that call at the start of the game. So for this setup, let's have a look at what we got. So we got Needle, which is an attachment. We got Summer. We got Eddard Stark, Direwolf Pup, Arya Stark. They're all characters. We've got an event called Wolf Dreams, and we've got a location, Hearttree Grove. Now, during setup you cannot play events, so we know we won't be able to use that. But you can use up to 8 gold's worth of these cards, essentially playing them for free before the game even starts. So you can look at your cards and decide which ones you want to play up to 8 gold's worth. Now, anything that's 0 cost, it's pretty much a guarantee that you're going to play that one because it's basically a free play. During setup, when you're choosing your cards, you got to do it simultaneously with all the other players. So if I'm going to play this card, I'm going to put it like this for now, down on the table where the other player won't see it. And for, let's say I took 2 for Direwolf Pup, plus 6 for Eddard Stark, and that would be 8. So that 8 gold worth of cards is ready to go. I've made my decision, I'm sticking with those. When the other player does the same thing, you can reveal together, stick your cards face up, and as you can see, that's our 8 golds worth of stuff. 2 characters and a location. I recommend that you keep locations separate from characters. It just makes play a lot easier, especially when you're starting out. You know that these guys are involved in challenges and locations are not. If, for example, you don't want to spend 8 gold for any particular reason, like let's say for example we didn't play Eddard Stark but we wanted to play Arya Stark, we'd only have used up 6 gold. The remaining 2 gold is just gone. You don't get that in change. Once you've got your setup complete, you got to draw back up to 7. So I've got 4 cards in my hand here. I would draw 3 more, and now you're ready to get going on the first round of play. Once setup is over, we're going to go through the main phases of a turn. The first phase of any turn is the plot phase, and this is these cards. Now, these are all obviously landscape orientated cards compared to the portrait ones that you get in your main deck. This is to differentiate between them, so you don't mix them together. Plot cards are really cool in this game. I think they're one of the things that make the game quite unique. Let's have a look at one of them in detail. So each plot phase, each player is going to choose one of these plot cards, and only one. And once you've chosen which one you want, just like in setup, you keep it face down. When everybody's chosen, you reveal together at the same time. The most important part of each plot card is this area here with the 3 numbers on it. This first number, the 3 in this case, is the number of gold that you're going to get in the marshalling phase, which is when you pay for characters. This next one, the 6 here in the diamond shape, that's initiative, which is who gets to go first. And the last one here is claim value. We're going to go into a lot of detail on that later on. But essentially it's how strong your challenges are going to be throughout the rest of the round. Plot cards also have this little number in the red triangle at the bottom. This is your reserve value, which is the maximum number of cards you can have at the end of a round. Once all players have revealed their plot cards, there could be some text that will happen on the cards. These are all very different. I'm going to go through the plots in detail in another video, along with all the other types of cards. So let's not get bogged down in the details of that right now. So once they're down, compare the initiative value on each plot on the table, and whoever has the highest gets to choose who goes first. Sometimes you might want to go first, sometimes you might not want to go first. It completely depends on what cards you're playing in your deck. The first player is going to get this Iron Throne token. To be honest, I hardly ever use this token. If you're playing 2 players, you're going to know who it is anyway. But it's a nice little thing, use it if you want. Once the plot phase is over, you go straight to the draw phase. The draw phase is pretty straightforward. You just take the top 2 cards from your deck and add them to your hand. That's it. Once you've got your 2 cards in your hand, you go straight to the marshalling phase. Marshalling phase is when you play your cards and pay for them. So the first thing that happens in the marshalling phase is you take a look at your gold amount on your plot card and you get that many tokens. So in this case 3, and you can pay for cards. For example, I had Summer in my hand, and if you have a look here in the top left hand corner, it says 3 in a little gold thing. That means you take your 3 tokens and you pay for Summer. Just pay the tokens into the supply and put the character out onto the table. You also pay for locations and attachments in the same way. So if I happened to, say, have Arya Stark already in play from setup or a previous round, and I had some more gold, I could play Needle as an attachment for 1 gold on Arya, like so. Which means she has now got Needle attached to her, which will give her added effects. Just an aside note on attachments, sometimes you don't want to play attachments on your own cards. So, for example, if you're Martell, you might want to play Imprisoned on an enemy character. In this case, Imprisoned would take Jaime Lannister's military icon away from him. You're not going to put that on your own character because you're just weakening yourself. Also, you might want to play Frozen Solid on an enemy location because it essentially negates the power of that location. These are just examples of you using your own cards on the other player's side of the table. And just like characters and attachments, you can also play locations, like this Winterfell Castle, by paying the cost. In this case it would be 3 gold, and you can put it into play. Another thing that you can do is you can play events in the marching phase if you want. That's something you couldn't do in setup. For example, this one, Wolf Dreams, which says kneel your faction card to search your deck for a direwolf card, reveal it and add it to your hand, then shuffle your deck. So 0 cost, goes into your discard pile, which I try and keep away from your active cards so there's no confusion. So if we were doing this, we'd pick up our deck, look for a direwolf. For example, Grey Wind, and it would go into your hand. You can keep gold left over from marshalling, which is often quite a good idea because some events require you to spend gold to play them, and events can be very useful in the challenges phase. Once everybody has finished marshalling, you go into that challenges phase, which is the meat of the game where things are going to get really interesting. Okay, so the challenges phase, where the main stuff happens in the game. Before you know how to do challenges, you got to understand the icons on some of these cards. So these icons on the left side of the cards will indicate which challenges the characters are able to take part in. So for example, this red icon here on Jaime Lannister is a military icon, so he can take part in military challenges. This green icon here in the middle on Cersei Lannister is an intrigue icon, which denotes that she can take part in intrigue challenges. And this blue icon here on Eddard Stark is a power icon, which means he could take part in power challenges. If a character doesn't have one of the icons, they can't take part in that challenge. For example, Jaime can't take part in power challenges, Cersei can't take part in military challenges, and Eddard Stark can't take part in intrigue challenges. Military challenges are when you want to kill your opponent's characters. Intrigue challenges are when you want to discard cards from your opponent's hand, and that always happens randomly, so you might discard cards that the other player really wants to keep hold of. And the power challenge is how you acquire power tokens, and power tokens are how you win the game. Whenever you win a power challenge against another player who has power tokens already, you're probably going to get 1, maybe 2 of them, depending on the claim on your plot card, which we'll explain in a moment. Okay, so for the challenges phase, I'm going to use this setup as an example. This is the Stark side. They've got their plots over here, the deck here, the faction card here. The only thing to really note now is that this plot card has a claim of 2, which means their challenges have 2 strength. They've got Eddard Stark, they've got Sansa Stark and Winterfell Steward, and they've also got this location here, the Iron Throne. Over on the Lannister side of the table, we've got the plot card with 1 claim. They've only got 1 gold, which they didn't spend. They've got Burned Man here and Jaime Lannister. Okay, so the Starks are going to go first in this example, and they have access to each type of challenge because they've got a military icon on Eddard Stark, they've got an intrigue icon on Sansa, and they've got a power icon on all three of their characters. So they have choice of any of the ones available. Players don't have to do the challenges in a particular order. You could start with a power challenge or a military challenge or an intrigue challenge. Doesn't really matter. The only thing that restricts you is that you can only do one of each per turn. So to start off, the Starks are going to do a military challenge. So to do a military challenge, they take Eddard Stark, who has a military icon, and kneel him like this. So characters that are orientated upright are considered to be standing. Characters that are turned 90 degrees are knelt. Knelt cards basically can't be used again for the rest of the round unless there is some effect that stands them again. So by initiating this military challenge with Eddard Stark, the Stark player is effectively saying, this is what Eddard is doing this turn, and he probably won't be doing anything else. If we take a look at him in more detail, you can see that he has the icon we need for this challenge, and down here he's got this number 6 in his shield. This is the amount of strength that he's committing to the challenge. So the Lannister player will be looking at this number and trying to figure out what to do to counter him. 6 strength is actually quite strong in this game. You won't find a lot of characters with that much strength, at least not right now. And because the Stark player has 2 claim as shown on this part of their plot card, that means that if the Lannisters don't stop this 6 strength, the Starks are going to kill 2 of the characters on the other side of the board. So the Lannister player really doesn't want to lose any of their characters to Ned's military challenge, so they're going to have to defend. Luckily they've got some good characters that can stop Ned. They've got Jaime Lannister here, who can defend a military challenge because he has a military icon here, and he's got strength of 5, which is not quite enough to stop Ned. But we've also got Burned Men here, who can defend a military challenge and have 2 strength. So the Lannister player is going to defend with both of these characters. Defending means that you gotta kneel your characters just like attacking, so these characters are both not usable for the rest of the round because they're defending. So the Stark's military challenge was for 6 strength. The Lannisters are going with 5 and 2 is 7, which is more, so the Lannisters successfully defend the challenge. The Starks don't get to kill any Lannisters today. Okay, bad luck. So Ned didn't get to kill 2 Lannister characters, but that was only the first challenge. The Stark player also has Sansa Stark right here, who, as you can see, has both an intrigue and a power icon. Let's do an intrigue challenge. So Sansa kneels, and the Stark player says that they're initiating an intrigue challenge. Over on the Lannister side of the table, they don't have any intrigue icons left. The only standing character is this Lannisport merchant. He doesn't have an intrigue icon, he only has a power icon. Jaime Lannister had one, but he's knelt now because he defended the military challenge, so he can't defend against Sansa. So this challenge is going to be unopposed. Now, when a challenge is unopposed in this game, it means that the defending player hasn't defended the challenge or has put 0 strength towards the challenge. The bonus that the attacking player gets for this is a power token. This power token goes straight down onto their faction card, and this is 1 in the 15 that they need to win the game. Unopposed is not limited to the intrigue challenge, it could be from any challenge type. If Ned's military challenge earlier had been unopposed, there would have been another power on the Stark faction card, and it can also happen in a power challenge if that's the case. Also, in an intrigue challenge, you get to discard cards equal to your claim from the losing defender. Again, the Stark characters are challenging with a claim of 2, so the Lannister player is going to lose 2 cards from their hand at random. So the Lannister player puts their hand of cards in front of the Stark player so that they can choose which cards they want to discard. The Stark player could choose any of these. With claim 2, it's just going to take 2. These 2 here. In this case, it's Tyrion Lannister and Castle Rock, 2 pretty good cards. The Lannisters will be really annoyed to lose those cards. They're going to go straight into the Lannister discard pile. So the 2 cards go into the discard pile over here. Right now the Stark player has done a military challenge and an intrigue challenge. They may do a power challenge if they wish, but the only character they have left is Winterfell Steward, who has a strength of 1 here, which is not a lot, so the Stark player is actually going to end their challenges phase there. Okay, with the Starks finished their challenge phase, it switches to the Lannisters. They've got most of their characters knelt, but they've still got this guy here, Lannisport Merchant. He has a blue power icon and 1 strength, and Lannisters think that this might actually be worth doing, so they're going to initiate a power challenge for just a 1 strength. So they kneel Lannisport Merchant and say, we're doing a power challenge. On the Stark side of the table, the only character that they've got still standing is this guy, Winterfell Steward. Now he also has the power icon, which means he can defend, and he's got 1 strength as well. Now, even though their strength is equal, if Winterfell Steward defends like this, then he's not going to do enough to stop the Lannisport Merchant's 1. In this game, if there's a tie for strength, the attacker wins. It's to encourage attacking gameplay. So in this case, the Lannisport Merchant is going to win this challenge, but it's not unopposed because the Winterfell Steward has decided to defend. The power for a power challenge comes from the opponent's faction card. In this case, the Starks will lose this power that they had acquired earlier, and that power goes to the Lannisters. So as you can see, the Lannisters now have 1 power and the Starks have 0 power. It's funny how things can turn, especially if you're not ready to defend yourselves, eh Starks? The Lannisters don't really have anything else to do in the challenge phase because all of their characters are knelt. They don't have any locations that do anything, they don't have any events in their hand, so they're finished as well. When the challenge phase is over, we go into the dominance phase, which is a very short phase where players count up the remaining strength they haven't used on the table, and whoever has the most gets a bonus power token. Also included in this value is the number of gold left over. So on the Lannister side, they did have lots of characters with strength, but they're all knelt, so their character strength is actually 0. But they do have this gold, so their dominance value is currently 1. Over here, the Starks count their dominance. Again, they have no character strength because all the characters are knelt, and they don't have any gold, so it's still 0. But if you look here, they have this location, the Iron Throne, which reads, the Iron Throne contributes 8 strength to your total for dominance, which means the Starks actually have 8 strength, meaning they're going to win dominance this phase. Dominance essentially is just a free power token. This dominance power goes onto your faction card, just like in the challenges phase for a power challenge. Once dominance is over, we go into a very short phase called the stand phase. Essentially, you just take any of your knelt cards and stand them. Standing is a term for returning them to this upright position, meaning that they're ready to be used again in the next round. Once standing is complete, there's another tiny phase called taxation, which means any gold that was left over, like for example the Lannisters had 1 gold, that gets tossed away. You don't keep gold from round to round in this game. The last thing you do in the round is you check the reserve value on your plot card. For example here on the Stark's Famine plot card, it's 4. This is the most cards you can have in your hand. If you got any more than that, you got to throw down into the discard pile until you are at 4 cards. And that's the end of a round in Game of Thrones. Once you've done all that, you repeat. You go back to the plot phase, you choose a new plot from your plot deck, you do a marshalling phase after you've drawn 2 cards, you put out more characters, locations, attachments, etc. And then you go into a challenges phase again, and the game keeps going until one player has 15 power on their faction card, and that player is the winner. There are some other really important rules that you got to know for your first game of this game. Unique characters is a really big one. So if you have a look closely at Eddard here and Sansa Stark, they both have this little icon to the left of their name. It's really small and it's really easy to miss. While Winterfell Steward doesn't have that. Basically a character who has this icon beside their name is a unique character. The main thing with this is that you can only have one of that character in play at the one time. So if you happen to get another Ned in your hand, you wouldn't be able to put him out as an extra character like this. You can't have 2 Eddard Starks on the table. However, that's not to say that this card isn't useful. If you do get this, you can attach it as a duplicate on the Eddard you already have. And when another player tries to military challenge you, instead of killing him, you can save him by discarding the duplicate. This is a really important part of the game. A lot of decks will include multiple versions of the same card for this purpose. Particularly strong characters like Eddard, you'd want to have a duplicate on him to save him from military challenges and effects. Because once a character is killed, so say if he was targeted by a military challenge and he was saved, and then in the next round he was killed, this one goes into a dead pile. Any characters in a dead pile, which is separate to your discard pile, are essentially impossible to play again for the rest of the game. If Eddard was in your dead pile, he's gone. You're not getting him back for the rest of the game. However, if you did get another Winterfell Steward, because he's not a unique character, you can just marshal him as normal, paying his 1 gold, and then you can have 2 in play at once. Another thing is keywords. These are terms like intimidate, renown, limited, stealth, that you see on locations and characters and attachments and all sorts of cards that have a common effect throughout the game. Like a character who has intimidate, it's the same for every character. A character who has renown, it's the same for every character. I'm not actually going to go into detail on those in this video. I'm going to do a separate video on keywords, which will have a link in the description once it's up, because it's a little bit more detailed. Keywords are explained in the rules reference. If you have a look on the index, you should be able to find them pretty easily. If you don't understand what they do, be sure to check out the keywords video that supports this one. You may also notice these cards in the core box with the blue background on the reverse side. They are the titles that are used in Melee. Melee is the multiplayer version of Game of Thrones. I'm also going to do a brief video on how Melee works. It is slightly different to what I've shown in this video. There's a few extra steps that you've got to do to get through a round with multiple players. Melee is really good fun. It adds a lot of backstabbery and intrigue to the game, and I recommend that you try that as well. The last thing to note is the golden rule of this game, which they mention in the rulebook, which is the text on cards takes precedent over the rules themselves. So if you feel that a card is breaking the rules, it probably is, but that's okay. Always go with the text on the cards. That's it for now. I hope you have gotten something good out of this video and now know how to play Game of Thrones the card game. We will follow up with a keywords video, a melee video, and from there on we will show a lot of cards, give some opinions on them in the future, so come back to check that out. Thank you very much.